Atheists and believers, they very often argue about totalitarianism and totalitarianisms, about the particular regimes which were worse, those religious regimes, or maybe the atheistic or secular regimes. We can name, for instance, the communist China, but in fact, and Guy Serman, the French economists with this sociological also attitude of making research, of doing research, he is right when he thinks about this as senses of hate, this as an example of a cult in the communist China, that the Maoism was far more religious than the Bolshevism, for instance. But even when we talk about Bolshevism, we can think that, of course, Marxism-Leninism, it was not a very rational and very sober ideology. It's very unclear how to make the revolution really. When we look into the Das Kapital or the different writings by Marx, it's clear that it's unclear how to prepare a revolution. Marx wanted and liked to write very much about the contradictions within the capitalist system, but he wasn't so. He didn't provide any detailed information about how to make this revolution, how to put all those changes through. So Marxist-Leninism is also a little bit religious-like, because he lacks this sobriety of rational thinking, of knowledge based on experiments and observation. But it's more or less a secular, ideology, although we don't know if it's more like an enemy or competitor of religion. He wants to put an end to religion, and that would make Marxism atheistic, really, Marxism-Leninism. But I think that Marxism-Leninism wanted to compete with religion, to replace the idea of the paradise in heaven with the idea of paradise on earth, and with all this prophetic, more closely to the purely atheistic regime would be, I think, Mexico from the time of the Cristeros, because there was really an attempt to put an end to a public life of Christians, to the public cult of Christians, which was, I think, an unnecessary move and a mistake, and it caused a war between the religious soldiers, the Cristeros, among which there were some fanatics also, and the aggressively secular government of Mexico. As to the religious totalitarianisms and regimes, we can divide them into two groups. One group would be those regimes who were basically and significantly Christian, because we are not talking about Islamic, for instance, totalitarianism, or authoritarianism, because we can, of course, Islamism is the Islamic version of fascism, but we can name, for instance, those fascist or fascist-like organisms and systems that were based on the Catholic Church and the help of the Catholic Church, for instance. Like in Salazar's Portugal, Franco's Spain, the Slovakia of priest Tiso, and also in Croatia, also in Austria of Engelbert Dollfuss, and so on. And those regimes were not so clearly Christian or something. They were trying to find something else, for instance, the ideal of ancient Italy, or the ideal of some Nordic religions. but they were collaborating with the Catholic Church and other religious organizations, and those religious organizations were collaborating with them. Personally, I think those quarrels about the number of totalitarian regimes, both atheistic and Catholic or broader Christian, I think it's very bad thing. We shouldn't quarrel about the number of people dead because of this or those. I think we should elaborate and we should observe closely what has caused this giant surplus of emotions and what caused this explosion of emotions and of insanity that caused so many deaths.